Good afternoon. I hope everyone is well. Inclusive teaching for students with a disability. This phrase alone will invoke various individual responses dependent upon your circumstance, experience and perspective. My aim today is to highlight strategies which I have implemented with a previous student, Richard, who some of you may remember, a young gentleman diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, where I'll synthesise research, legislation and pedagogical approaches so we all may develop a clear, contemporary understanding of inclusive teaching methods as we refresh for our 2021 teaching journey and beyond. As most of you will recall, we operate under legislative guidance with both the Disability Discrimination Act from 1992 and 2005's Disability Standards for Education guiding our formative classroom approaches. Subsequently, it is imperative that we align our future strategies of social inclusion within their guidance as we strive for successful learning outcomes for all students. With a broad definition of what constitutes a disability, as well as a prior or perceived disability, the Disability Discrimination Act ensures protection against harassment and discrimination, whilst providing a process for the resolution of complaints. The Disability Standards for Education clearly outline in Standard 6.2.1, education providers have a responsibility to ensure that any student with a disability is to have opportunities for learning experiences on the same basis as students without a disability, free from harassment and discrimination. Under Standard 6.2.2, education providers have two fundamental obligations: consultation, referring to the continual analysis of a student's disability to determine if adjustments are required throughout the time the student is involved with an educational provider. Reasonable adjustments are required by educational providers to balance the interests and learning needs of students with disabilities to ensure a targeted outline for support, including resources, services, materials and programs, with the overarching goal of the standards to absolutely eliminate harassment and victimisation. In Richard's case, some of you may remember that it was comprehensive collaborative practices which supported his social inclusion and development as a young man with Asperger's syndrome. Recent research has found participants with Asperger's syndrome often referred to the need for rules and structure in order to function, which may reflect more pervasive difficulties with aspects of executive functioning. Collaboration to achieve social inclusion needs to be from a student-centred perspective, with all of us in this school community required to contribute to this dynamic process designed to achieve common goals. It is essential that collaboration be valued and therefore sanctioned. Benefits will be increased morale and cohesion, definite structure and procedures with everyone accountable. The United Nations defines social inclusion as the process by which efforts are made to ensure equal opportunities, that everyone, regardless of their background, can achieve their full potential in life. Empathy is a key driver in enacting inclusive teaching practices, developing within students the ability to listen to each other and view experiences from their fellow classmates' perspective. Enacting adjustments to support quality differentiated teaching practices may increase learning outcomes for those students with disabilities. Within my KLA as a PDHPE educator, I successfully implement numerous strategies through usual school processes, which cater to the needs of our diverse student population, including Richard. Utilising pedagogical techniques in the practical physical education domain, I aim to break down the stereotypical attributes associated with physical ability, which are most often associated with hegemonic forms of masculinity. Instructional strategies, which are particularly beneficial for students, including Richard, have an enabling quality with a focus on task analysis. By defining clear learning intentions at the beginning of each lesson, be it theory lessons within a classroom or practical lessons on the oval or in a sports centre, I incorporate the widely utilised WALT and WILF acronyms, informing the students what we are learning today and what I am looking for. In my lesson plans, I also utilised the Universal Design for Learning to further differentiate for all abilities of learners by outlining 3 levels of expectations I have for students: at, below, and above the required level of learning. Specific clear instructions aid all students, along with Richard, to structure their tasks throughout the lessons. Scaffolding is a constant feature in PDHPE practical lessons, especially when students are learning a new sport or skill. Breaking down movement skills into step-by-step processes aid self-discovery and mastery in the developmental progression. Differentiating this scaffolding for competent skill abilities may include directing students to practice and master skills using their non-dominant hand or foot for increased dexterity. For less able students or those with impediments, focusing attention to mastery of only one skill process may aid in developing social inclusion as peer performance is integrated with highly skilled students. Students, including Richard, benefit from the routine and predictability of a step-by-step explicit visual instruction process to learning a new skill. ICT use within the PDHPE domain has increased as technology becomes more convenient and user-friendly. I frequently utilise handheld recording devices, including smartphones and tablets, to record students' physical movement skills and gameplay tactics within a variety of sports and games. Differentiation is achieved as students unable to take part in practical lessons physically can still be included by filming or editing footage with their peers. The ability for students to view themselves performing a skill or their movements within a game scenario provides critical direct feedback, as they may not be able to visualize their movement technique creatively. Conversely, students including Richard, who are adept at visual learning through imagery, benefit greatly from the incorporation of ICT use for outlining upcoming performance transitions. Adjustments to the instructional learning strategies provided a personalised modification and support structure for Richard to achieve considerable learning outcomes. Instructional adjustments to the delivery of PDHPE content was provided to Richard through a modified and tailored program. Effectively implemented in a unit of work where Richard was not taking in the information deeply enough, during which he was prone to outbursts when stressed, as he finds it hard to express verbally his feelings during frustrating times. In practical PDHPE lessons, we were able to aid Richard by using context to predict outcomes by inferring sequence and cause and effect relationships. Evident in the learning, the AFL kicking skill required to perform a drop punt kick through a structured task analysis approach, extra time was allocated for Richard to visually formulate a strategy for skill acquisition, utilising analytical outcomes of force, acceleration, and impact velocity predictions of effect. Developing emotional resilient behaviours with Richard aided his peer interaction progression, cultivating empathy with the realisation that other students may perceive things differently than he does. Supporting Richard's emotional needs was paramount during group activities in class, but especially during games and activities in practical PDHPE situations. Richard would at times perceive peer interactions incorrectly by misreading body language, not inferring sarcasm, or displaying an appearance of aloofness or indifference with inappropriate socialising behaviours. By encouraging good attempts at peer interaction and instilling that the formation of friendship networks occurs over a significant time period, Richard was able to increase his confidence and set personal goals regarding social understanding. Strategically, personal anxiety and pressure to achieve hindered Richard's progress socially. By instilling comprehensive and developmental processes within the social environment, an increased benefit of Richard's specific learning needs was achieved, whilst aiding to cultivate social inclusion throughout the student cohort. Conclusively, It takes a collaborative approach to achieve social inclusion through classroom instructional practices, utilising not only quality differentiated teaching practices, but adjustments and modifications defined by regulatory legislation and guidelines. By successfully modelling social strategies to students with links to curriculum content, their current interests and pre-existing knowledge, the learning of all students will be enhanced. Success of inclusive education with students with disabilities and additional needs, however, relies on resources, planning, communication, and creativity from the whole school environment. Effective pedagogical advancements may be achieved by all of us in 2021 and beyond if we continue working as a team to cultivate an environment of social inclusion and quality learning outcomes for all students. Thank you.